This is a presentation of National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasters, 70 weekly shows, and a 3.4-star rating on Roku TV.
You're watching Mac and Jack on National Streaming Sports.
Kim.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys get this win.
So I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem with saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I was right. So anyway,
Yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
so this is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Well, it's Monday, Jack, and we got some things to talk about in sports as we start off your week here on the Roku channel, National Streaming Sports. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch. And before we start, Jack's got an important event coming up here. I think it's September 15th. He's shaking his head at me, but I just
Thank you, Max. September 15th, Russo's on the Bay, the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. And I appreciate you mentioning it, Mac. I didn't think that's the way to start a show, but with all the sports news. But then again, sports news is kind of quiet this weekend after the Olympics.
Yes, it is.
And also, I appreciate it. We have the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame event September 15th at Russo's on the Bay in Howard Beach. And one of the honorees is going to be the New York State Fight of the Year, Teofimo Lopez. And we're going to have a bunch of, great honorees from the past and present. Bruce Beck, the broadcaster, NBC, he's going to be one of the honorees. For example, a number of good fighters from the past are getting inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. If it could be posted on here, the website, that's where people could take out tickets and if they want an ad to still congratulate the honorees. If it could be posted, it's www.nys and then the word boxing, BOXING, then HOF.org.
There you go, folks.
www.nysboxinghof.org. And the website will give all the information. Just click on the two lines on the upper right-hand side, and you get all the info you need for the banquet.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Good get with, no problem. Great get with Teofimo Lopez. And, I know he's fighting quickly after that. So you'll be able to hear him talk, see him, and then watch him fight. What is it, about a week, 2 weeks later or something like that?
Well, no, he was supposed to, Mac. He was supposed to fight September 29th at Madison Square Garden, but it didn't get worked out. Okay. But he's eyeing Terrence Crawford right now. That's the fight he's going after. And, might be made next. It's conceivable.
We'll yeah, definitely. That would be a pretty good fight too. So
yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up, Mac. I just didn't expect it right off the bat. That's why I was like shook up, like you stunned me with a punch.
Right.
Like, as soon as the opening bell rang, I thought you'd be feeling things out a little bit, but you went right to the attack on it.
Well,
I wasn't prepared.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure everybody out there knows that this is happening, and if they can still get tickets, great. And if and at least know what's going on with the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. So there you go.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem. We had two preseason games. yesterday, Jack. We had the New Orleans Saints versus the 49ers. Your favorite quarterback, Derek Carr, did lead the Saints in a 95-yard touchdown drive against the 49ers. Brock Purdy went in, didn't look too good. He only had 2 of 5, pretty inaccurate. He's trying to get the juices going there too, playing against another team. Josh Dobbs, I guess he's one of the San Francisco 49er quarterbacks. I mean, he moves around from team to team. Looked good, of course. He always looks good for at least one game. So Dobbs ends up passes for 133 yards and rushes for a bunch of yards. But hey, the 49ers, they beat New Orleans 16-10.
Mac, I don't hate Derek Carr, contrary to general belief. I really don't. He's a competent quarterback. I just wouldn't want him quarterbacking my team. Okay, but
not even as a last wait.
I've said it over and over.
Last resort.
Derek Carr is better than every backup quarterback in the NFL. But he's one of the worst starters. Okay, that's about like he's a tweener,
right.
Kind of. He can have good games. He can have some big games. I could see Derek Carr stringing together 2-3 good games in a row, but then he's going to fall flat. Okay, he's going to fall flat. There's certain quarterbacks like him, like your giant quarterback, Daniel Jones. You put certain quarterbacks in the category. You really don't want them to be a long-term quarterback. And listen, the Raiders are having quarterback problems now. They moved on from Derek Carr. People forget that. They would have moved on from a legitimate starter, had Derek Carr really been one.
There was a whole thing about that. I remember reading about that. They said something with his wife was involved, the family was involved, and that's why Derek Carr basically walked away. You said they moved on. Derek Carr really walked away.
They benched him, Mac.
Yeah, but there was more to it. There was more to it than what you're saying, Jack. There was something to do with the family. Something was said about his wife or something. There was other things. I remember reading about it. So there was some personal whatever involved in that. And you're right. Listen, Derek Carr is I say he's better than some of the starting quarterbacks in the league, right?
Not many.
But some. He's better than some other quarterbacks and the starting quarterbacks in the league right now. And he is not a great franchise quarterback. I will agree with you there. I mean, he's had plenty of time to prove that. But anyway.
He went to New Orleans last year. With New Orleans, he didn't get it done. He had a good game now and then. But I don't want to get in the whole Derek Carr discussion. But, he falls in between. He's going to, during this upcoming season, he's going to have a big game or two. He's going to throw 4 or 5 touchdown passes, and you're going to come back the next day on the Monday, and you're going to be smiling. Oh, Jack is eating crow, this and that.
Yeah.
It's just he's what he is. I mean, he's competent, but I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want him as my franchise quarterback. That's the best way of putting it. I
got you. So. In the other game, Denver wins 27-2. No Jordan Love. Let's see. Bo Nix leads him on an 80-yard TD drive. He throws it. 80 yards for 1 TD for the second in the week. He had another drive that led to a field goal. Stidman ran for one, threw an interception, which didn't look good. And Zach Wilson also threw for a touchdown. But to me, the story there was Bo Nix for the second game in a row. He leads the team on 2 scoring drives. And a lot of people, their biggest complaint about Bo Nix, and you know how I feel about Bo Nix. I made it clear I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. He's a dinker and he's a dunker. So was Tom Brady to a point. So was a lot of quarterbacks, dinkers and dunkers. And he does have the arm to go deep. I just like the way he runs an offense. He makes the reads. He makes the right throws. He throws the ball away. He threw so far in his 2 games. He has 75% of a 75% passer rating, which was almost exactly what he had in college. He's very accurate, Jack. And I think that there's no doubt in my mind he'll be the Saints starting quarterback. I mean Denver's starting quarterback. And I don't know how good Denver will be this year, but I think Bo Nix will be pretty good, Jack.
Bo Nix was the 6th quarterback taken in the draft in the 12th round. 6th quarterback taken Bo Nix has to start, Mac. He has to start by default. The guys behind him are awful. Zach Wilson and Jason Stidham. Of course, there's a possibility Zach Wilson still develops with different coaching that he had from the Jets. I wouldn't hold my breath on it, but I wouldn't rule it out completely either because he does have talent. And there's a little bit of a storyline going on. Reportedly, Zach Wilson is pulled up even with Jason Stidham for the backup role. That's yet to be determined. So Zach Wilson might turn out, to be the primary backup. But you look at out of the 6 quarterbacks drafted, you're a big believer in carrying the clipboard, but only 2 of them were projected to carry the clipboard. One was obviously Michael Penix because the Falcons had Kirk Cousins. So there was absolutely no way at all that Michael Penix was going to start over Kirk Cousins, that he was going to beat him out. Cousins was getting too big of a contract, was too established. Everyone knew Michael Penix was going to be a backup there the moment he was drafted, a backup for at least 1 year, probably 2 years, okay? But in the beginning, and J.J. McCarthy, they wanted to kind of move him on a little slowly. So they had Sam Darnold, but there was always the possibility that J.J. McCarthy, if he didn't get injured, would start ahead of Sam Darnold by the opening game, depending how they looked in training camp. And, of course, the Patriots with Drake May and Jacoby Brissett. It's interesting that they're saying, with New England, the quarterback competition is still up in the air. And you want to know something? It might actually be. There's actually a chance, Mac, that Drake May is going to see the field a lot sooner than we think because Jacoby Brissett's the starter, and he is not a starting caliber NFL quarterback. So if Drake May is outdoing him in training camp and they think Drake May is ready sooner than anticipated, he's going to see the field as soon as he's ready because New England's going nowhere this year. And New England's season is based in large part on Drake May's development.
So do you think he has a chance to develop if he's starting with a terrible offensive line, Jack?
Who says the offensive line is going to be much better next year? You make do, you have conservative play calling, you make adjustments. And, Matt, the reality of the NFL is most of the offensive lines struggle.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, look at Joe Burrow, his whole career. He's had like a shaky offensive line.
They have redone the offensive line for Joe Burrow for sure, compared to like you're talking about that first year when he went up there, and I mean he was getting hit all the time. Listen, I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of starting high round drafted quarterbacks don't make it. And if they do start Drake May, I mean, that's their call. They do what they want, but they're feeding him to the wolves, just like they're feeding Jaden Daniel to the wolves and to a point, Caleb Williams. I mean, you can have all the greatest wide receivers you want, Jack, but if you don't have, and the Patriots don't have any wide receivers too, Washington has one good wide receiver. Caleb Williams has a lot of support around him that a lot of starting quarterbacks don't have, including Bo Nix with their weapons. But again, rookie quarterback going into a circumstance on a team that's not a playoff caliber team, it's going to be dangerous for all of those starting quarterbacks, Jack.
Well, Matt, but football in the quarterback position isn't the way it was in the past, where you had a Johnny Unitas who would stay in the pocket. There are very few quarterbacks that are immobile. The Jets have a problem with Aaron Rodgers. He's not really mobile. You can't expect him to move around, so it's crucial that they block extra well for Aaron Rodgers. But some of these quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, who are mobile, who can move around.
So is Justin Fields, Jack. So is Justin Fields. Well, there's a lot of mobile quarterbacks out there.
And the good ones make it happen, Matt.
Yeah, but
the good ones are successful.
I did a kind of a special Mac attack on Lamar Jackson I put out there. And if you think about it, and we're talking mobile quarterbacks, I think almost every quarterback in the league is mobile at some point or another, buying time. But you're talking about running quarterbacks versus pocket quarterbacks. Brock Purdy's a pocket quarterback. He's a pocket quarterback. He can run. Patrick Mahomes, he runs.
Yeah, but they have a good offensive line, the Niners. They block well for him.
Patrick Mahomes is basically a pocket quarterback that can move around when he has to.
Patrick.
Yeah, there's no running plays designed for Patrick Mahomes, Jack. He runs when he has to run. That's after his third read. He doesn't get the ball. They do a read option with Patrick Mahomes. They don't do that. There's no RPO for Patrick Mahomes. He goes in the pocket, he makes his reads, and if the rush comes too hard for him or there's nobody open, he tries to extend the play. If he can't, then he runs. There's not too many times that Patrick Mahomes gets the ball thinking I'm running with the ball. That's not how the Chiefs work. They don't do that, Jack. So people say, well, Patrick Mahomes gets a lot of rushing yards. He did last year because he had to. He had no choice sometimes. That's not what Patrick Mahomes is. Patrick Mahomes sits in the pocket, picks you apart. That's what Patrick Mahomes does great. So when you're going to talk about a Jaden Daniels or a Lamar Jackson, when he has to sit in the pocket, he has problems. And that's why they don't make it to the Super Bowl, Jack. That's why they don't win the Super Bowl. You got to have a quarterback that sits in the pocket and can make reads. They do more damage throwing the ball than you do running the ball. And that's why really a running quarterback has never won the Super Bowl. They've come close, but they've never done it.
Well, I don't want to get in an argument about it, but Patrick Mahomes is very mobile. He can run when he has to. You don't have to. I don't want to get into a philosophy thing.
Right.
Sports. But Patrick Mahomes creates things by rolling out, even when he's not running past the line of scrimmage.
I agree.
His legs do create things.
I agree. He can extend the play when nobody's open.
Yeah.
That's different. That we agree on.
And Aaron Rodgers will have problems extending plays this year if they don't block for him. That's the example I'm trying to give.
That's a great example. That's a great example. Because Aaron Rodgers is going to have to, but Aaron Rodgers will throw you open too. I mean, he'll make a throw that
he'll have great instincts. He'll have great instincts, a great release and all, but he's not going to extend plays the way Patrick Mahomes would.
Agree. We both agree on that. So anyways, Josh Dobbs. I mean, if I was a coach, and when I got Josh Dobbs, I'd let him play the first 2 games and I'd sit him down because you might win the first 2 games with him. After that, they figure it out.
You get excited. You got excited about Josh Dobbs. He came to the
Minnesota. I do.
They didn't even have time to draw up plays, and he won a game. And just showing up out of nowhere, and you got all excited.
Listen,
that's
the key.
The next game, and you thought, he could be the fight.
That's the key, Jack. That's the key to Josh Dobbs. Don't tell him the playbook.
He was in Arizona. He was starting for a little bit when Colin Murray was out. Come on.
That's the key, Jack. That's the key to Josh Dobbs. He's a
third-string quarterback talent.
I agree.
Josh Dobbs is good enough to hold a spot on my team as a third-string quarterback.
I just have never heard. I don't know about you, and we'll finish with Josh Dobbs here. I have never heard of a quarterback that can come into a team, not know the plays, not know the players, and win games. I've never met.
Tennessee, they started him late in the year, big game. I mean, listen, he's competent. He's been around, and
he would
you want a guy who's been around who can take a snap from center, understand how to play the position.
I agree. He would be a good flag football quarterback. So let's get
listen. He'd be Josh Dobbs would be the MVP in the USFL.
All right. So let's get to that.
Now it's time for NFL news on the Big Football Show.
The Big Football Show, but it's a Mac and Jack show. So we got our NFL news update here. Gardner Minshew is named the starting quarterback of the Raiders. Antonio Pierce says he has the best chance with him to get out fast with Gardner Minshew, meaning that after the first quarter, if he has problems, O'Connell's going right in. But they're going to start.
Not necessarily. Maybe he'll rotate him, whatever. But the bottom line is the Raiders never dressed their quarterback.
Well, they just did. They just did.
They went 13th in the draft.
Right.
And 6 quarterbacks went ahead of them. If they wanted one of those quarterbacks bad enough, they could have moved up in the draft. They could have come up with a big blockbuster deal.
They tried to go up. They did try to
Yeah,
move up.
I mean, no. They could have moved up, but they would have had to give up a couple extra number ones or this or that. But obviously, and I'm not knocking them for it, they didn't have faith in any of the other quarterbacks who they may have been able to get because they knew Williams, Daniels would go 1-2, May would go third. So they were projected to perhaps have Michael Penix Jr., that he might fall to them. And no one expected the Falcons to draft, a quarterback, let alone Penix Jr.
Penix won a job. Yeah, whatever.
But it was expected to go, to be there 13 perhaps. And they didn't move up ahead of Denver to leapfrog for Bo Nix. But it tells you enough about Aiden O'Connell. If you don't beat out Gardner Minshew for the position, they've seen enough of him in camp. So I don't want to hear Minshew struggles. Oh, put in O'Connell. He's the answer. He's not the answer. He obviously lost out in the competition to Minshew in training camp, but at least he didn't beat him out. So Denver has big problems. Minshew's another one. Competent backup quarterback. Very competent backup. But you don't want him long-term as your starter. He might win the Raiders a few games. And
yeah, last year. Let me give you some stats. Last year, Minshew had started 13 games, played 17 for the Colts, throwing for a career high 3,505 yards and 15 touchdowns. Minshew has been a starter in the past. I agree with you. He's not a franchise quarterback. He's a bridge quarterback, very good backup, bridge quarterback at the best. They must have faith in O'Connell. Bo Nix was taken, I think, before the Raiders.
One selection before.
Right. Shake Rattler was still there. There were still other quarterbacks available, Jack.
They didn't have to. They could have in the later round. Yeah, they could have, but obviously they didn't think the later quarterbacks were that good or weren't ready to really step in per se. But we hear these things about these interim coaches like Antonio Pierce. He went 5-4 last year, and everyone's saying, "Oh, give Antonio Pierce the job. He's earned it." He went 5-4. They improved with Antonio Pierce over when they had Josh McDaniels. I was okay with giving Antonio Pierce the job. But what bothers me is the mentality of the media and the fans. Why can't you give guys 1-year contracts to prove themselves? And then when you're sold on them, you give them a longer deal. And let me tell you, the guy who gets the 1-year contract, if he proves himself, he's a free agent.
Well,
he can cut whatever deal he wants. The franchise always has to. No, Matt. The franchise always has to take a hit and pay coaches for not working because they give them multi-year deals and they don't last the multi-years.
Good morning, David. Glad you joined us. First of all, you're off base with the Raiders totally. It wasn't the fans that pressed the ownership into buying it to give him that contract. It wasn't the media. It was the players. The players told. Yeah. All right. So if the players have that much faith in him, why wouldn't you give him a shot?
You give him a 1-year deal and you tell the players you want him to remain as your coach. You win next year. You win. And then we're going to sign him for more than 1 year. Now we'll give him a multi-year deal, but you win. You prove it. But we're going to let him be your coach next year. This way, the players are put on notice. Let them win. Let Antonio Pierce show what he can do, and then you give him a
That's your question, Jack. You think 1 year is long enough for a coach to prove himself? Really?
Within a yes.
You do. Well, then you have no idea. Then you have no idea what you're talking about.
With a team like the Raiders, yes.
If you believe that a coach can win in 1 year, in 1 year.
Mac, he was with them last year.
That doesn't matter, Jack. He wasn't serving as the head coach. If you believe that Jimmy Johnson would have never been the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
No,
Bill Parcells would have never been the head coach of the Giants.
Mac, let me clarify it. The differences in franchises. You take over a team that's a mess, that's on the bottom. The coach needs time to establish himself. I agree. 1 year is not enough. Like a Jared Mayo at New England. New England is down. Okay, they're starting from the bottom. He needs to develop the team into his character, his style of play, or whatever. 1 year wouldn't be enough. It would be totally unfair to Jared Mayo because that's a team that's not ready to win. If you have a team that's ready to win, then 1 year absolutely is enough. The Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson were a mess. They were 3-13 when he took over. So 1 year wouldn't have been enough.
And he went down. And he went down 1-15. And he went down to 1-15. And then if he didn't get that draft, who knows what he would have been? And Tom Landry would have never been the coach of the Cowboys. He got worse. He got worse. He got worse. The team got worse under him in the beginning.
The first year.
The first wrong thing you're saying. The first wrong thing you're saying is them. The Raiders are ready to win. Ready to win what? What are the Raiders ready to win? They're going to win the division. They're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wait, they did.
They're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens in the playoff.
Wait. Last year, late in the season, it was a big game for the Chiefs and the Raiders defeated the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, all right.
Late in the year in a big game.
Okay, so what? It happens. So what?
And the Raiders were 5-4 under Antonio Pierce.
Okay,
they improved. So you give it, but I'm not sure whether Antonio Pierce is the right guy long term going forward.
It doesn't matter if you're not sure. It matters if the Raiders are sure. Listen, what you're saying is that first of all, you're saying the Raiders are a good team. They're not. The Raiders are not a good team. They're not a good team. They're not a good team, Jack. They're not a good team, period. They're just not a good team. If you saw how they were with Garoppolo and all that crap they went through, they're not a good team. Antonio Pierce, if you watch anything on Antonio Pierce, what they love about Antonio Pierce is his culture, how he works with the players. The players love him because they feel that they have a chance to win with him, other than Josh Daniel. I mean, they were a winning team. I think you're overvaluing the Raiders. You're overvaluing. The Raiders are not that good. The Raiders are a third place team.
No, I didn't say they were. But they have a good defensive unit.
So does the Giants, and so did the Jets. They went 7-10. I mean, you're very much overvaluing the Raiders team, Jack. To me, there's no way they're going to beat the Ravens. They're not going to beat the Browns. They're not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going to beat the top teams in the AFC this year. It's not going to happen. They're not that good. And it doesn't matter who's coaching. So I think you're overvaluing the Raiders too much. That's all I'm saying. I really do. So I listen, you got to give Antonio Pierce a couple years to turn that around. They need a quarterback, as you said. They need a quarterback. Minshew is not a starting quarterback.
No, if they feel he's their guy moving forward, fine.
Yeah. What's their choice?
If they really feel that, but if they're not certain, you give a guy 1 year if you're not sure.
What's their choice, Jack, right now? As a quarterback,
a lot of coaches gone out there and looked around.
I'm saying, what's their choice at quarterback right now?
But part of a coach's job is to address the quarterback situation.
What is he going to address? What's he going to do? Who is he going to put in place of Minshew?
You move up on the draft. You get a free agent.
That's not his job, Jack. That's the GM's. That's the owner's job. That's not his job to move up. You can't blame Antonio Pierce for dealing with what he has right now. They need a quarterback. They do need a quarterback. Now, why didn't they go out there and maybe sign Tannehill or maybe another quarterback that might give them a better chance? I don't know, but that's not Antonio Pierce's job to do. He's got to coach the team they give him, and maybe they finish above 500. Maybe they don't. They're not going to win the division. That's not happening. If they get a wild card, they're doing great, right? I would think that's a good job.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, wild card would be fine for the Raiders.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's what just make the playoffs would be a great job. Tampa Bay's Randy Gregory, formerly with the Cowboys. His time with Tampa Bay ended before it started. He signs a contract with Tampa Bay. and never shows up. So I don't know what happened there. I mean, even the coach over there,
Todd Bowles, yeah.
He doesn't know what happened.
Todd Bowles doesn't know what the heck's going on there. I said good luck to him. I never met him. I got to talk to him. I mean,
what's going
on? Member of the team. Then he wasn't a member of the team.
Okay. He's like Hassan. At least Hassan let him know why he's not coming. I don't know what happened. Anyway, Pro Bowl cornerback Stephen Gilmore reaches a 1-year deal, $10 million deal with the Vikings, Jack. Vikings adding a little bit more defense.
Yeah, 34 years old, one of the best corners in football in his prime. Does he have anything left? Well, we'll see. He could help the Vikings secondary. Again, it depends how much he has left. If he's towards the end of the line, it's kind of basically like him cashing out. I don't know what his attitude is right now. Not that he's ever had a bad attitude, but who knows how good he is anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
It might be a steal for the Vikings. If he's his old self, it would be a steal for the Vikings. He played
pretty well. He played pretty well last year. And this is where I agree with the 1-year contracts. I mean, this is where you find out. I mean, at 34 years old, played well last year, as you said, former All-Pro. Yeah, it's worth. I think that's worth a shot, right? I think it's worth a chance. I'm not sure what the Minnesota Vikings have for defensive backs, but I guess it would be an upgrade over there for him.
Well, Dallas didn't want to pay Stephen Gilmore. He'd been hurt, but let's see. It seems like a decent signing for the Vikings. Worth taking a chance on Stephen Gilmore. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I think it's worth the chance.
I think so too. And they also signed quarterback Matt Corral as the backup to Sam Darnold because J.J. McCarthy's on the injured reserve list. So they had to get somebody.
Well, they have Nick Mullins there as a backup, and Corral is going to be if he makes the team, he's going to be the third stringer.
Yeah,
I mean he's been around, and you get these quarterbacks, Mac. They're never going to start, but at least they can take the snap from center. They can learn defenses, and you give them a very conservative game plan in the event that they get in, and you hope your defense, keeps you in the game. That's the type of signing it is.
And the good thing is that the NFL lets you keep 3 quarterbacks and not count against your roster because of what happened to the 49ers and the Eagles where they had McCaffrey as the emergency quarterback. So that doesn't count against your roster. So you can carry 3 quarterbacks, and the only thing you got to do is make them active before the game. So anyway,
there's no way. I'm going to tell you, if you don't have a player who can play quarterback, all of a sudden everyone gets injured, and you huddle up with the players, and one player holds up his hand and said, well, I played high school when I was in the 10th grade. I was a backup in high school.
Right.
You throw him on the center because you figure all he has to do is catch this. You get the snap and you keep handing off. We saw what happened with Brock Purdy in the playoff game. Yeah. He was injured. It was brutal to watch.
Yeah.
There's no hiding if you don't have a quarterback.
That's the truth. Let's see. Let's go to MLB standings. Of course, New York and Baltimore are still fighting for first place. Boston playing the Orioles right now lost, so they're about 8 games behind right now.
Mac, you look at the wild card. Mac, you're living in the past, looking what they're behind. You probably still use the term. Let's look at the pennant races.
Well, what's wrong with the pennant race? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a great pennant race.
Age, Mac, get with it.
There's nothing wrong.
The Red Sox are 3.5 games behind in the wild card hunt. But you're saying, they're 8 games behind.
Yeah,
they have to make up 8 games to win the division.
You've got to take
cares about that.
You got to take the statement in context. I'm showing that the Baltimore Orioles won, which keeps them with the Yankees in a tie right now because the Yankees lost, and Boston still is in the wild card. Right? I mean, we got to keep it in context here. I'm not just going to go there and say Boston is 3rd in the wild or 4th in the wild card race. That means nothing right now. They still got another 40 games to play. So I'm not gonna say who's in the wild card race right now.
I could tell you this, Mac.
Yes.
Every player on the Red Sox is looking at the playoff situation. And not, I mean, they notice they're 8 games behind, and they're
Right.
probably saying, we're probably not going to win the division. We understand that. And I don't want to say they've thrown in the towel on that, but they're
hope not.
resigned to not winning the division.
I hope they're not resigned.
to the
I
players.
hope they're not resigned to that.
No, but what they're looking at, Mac, is wow, we're 3.5 games out of a wild card position, and that's what's pushing them. That's what they're focused on.
Well, that's a shame because I remember the Yankees being like 15 games behind in July 15th or by July 20th, and they came back and won first place. If the Red Sox are resigned to not winning the division, I'd probably get rid of my whole team.
Mac, you did that in 1978.
They better.
Wild card.
They better. Well, that's a shame.
They have to win the division.
Well,
to get in the
right, and
playoffs.
that should be the attitude today too.
But
That
it's
should be the
different, Mac.
attitude. Well, I'm telling you, that should be the attitude. If anybody didn't have that attitude on my team, they'd be sitting on the bench. We're going here to win the division, and you still have a chance. That would be my attitude. I wouldn't.
Yes, if they get closer, Mac. If the Red Sox all of a sudden surge from 8 games back to now 2 or 3 games behind with games to play, yeah, they're going to be a little inspired. Maybe we could even win the division. They'll get a little excited about it, I'm sure. But they're not looking at that now. They're looking at the 3.5 games out. That keeps you going more. That's more realistic, Mac.
Jack, I want players that think unrealistically. I want players that want to win the division. I don't care. If there's 10 games left and we're 8 games out, I want them to try to win the division. I don't want them sitting back and saying, well, we're 3 games in a while. I don't want that type of player on my team. So Minnesota is creeping closer to Cleveland. Cleveland at the end of the year in the playoffs always starts falling off. I think they've lost 5 in a row or something ridiculous right now. Minnesota's 2 games back.
Well, Minnesota's playing well, and we talked about the wild card position a moment ago, and these teams, they just have to win, and the standings will take care of itself.
Yes, of course.
Cleveland's in good shape as far as getting into the playoffs, but I'll tell you, if they keep slumping, anything could happen. But part of it's Minnesota's played well. Cleveland hasn't been that bad. They've lost, you said, 5 in a row. I didn't realize that.
KC is only 4 games. Kansas City's only 4 games back, Jack. That's a heck of a division. I'm just waiting for Cleveland to do what they do every year, it seems. At the end of the year, they run out of steam. They always in first place near the end of the year, and they always end up not getting there. Or they go to playoffs.
They get in the playoffs.
They go to playoffs, they get kicked out. They're out. See you later. I just want to see Cleveland do something better than that anyway. Yeah, they have lost their 5 games in a row. Phillies have turned it around, Jack. They've on a 4-game winning streak, stretching their lead to 8 games over Atlanta. They had a little fallback. They came back a little bit. That's a mark of a good team, right? I mean, you're going to have your losing streak. You come right back. You win 4 games in a row. I mean, they're not playing the greatest teams in the world. Let me correct that they lost last night. So 4 of the last 5 games. So, I mean, that's a good team. They're not playing the best teams, but it don't matter. Whoever's in front of your schedule, you got to beat the teams. That's the Mets problem. They can't beat the teams that they should be. I mean, they're not beating the bad teams, And the Yankees are having that problem too, Jack. The Yankees aren't beating the teams they should beat. I mean, how can you play in a Little League World Series, big fiasco, great thing going, and lose to the Tigers? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, Clay Holmes didn't get to save, at the end of the game, and they let that game get away. And these games kind of haunt you later on. But the Yankees in good shape, going forward. I think they had their big mid-season slump. Not that they won't hit another little slump again, but I think they have a bit of a cushion, to fall back on if they lag a little bit. But I think the Yankees will be fine, going forward.
The Brewers 10-game lead. That to me, that's over. I think Milwaukee Brewers in that division. Because I don't think there's a good team in that division besides Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got a lot of power. They beat the good teams. They might surprise everybody this year, Jack.
Yeah, Craig Counsell, who was the Milwaukee Brewer manager for so many years, he left to go to manage the Chicago Cubs. The Brewers wanted him to continue. They would have given him a long-term deal or whatever.
Right.
And he goes to the Cubs, and the Brewers haven't missed a beat. They've been great without Counsell, and the Cubs have struggled. You know, it's a question whether the Cubs can be runner-up in that division, but everyone is fought behind Milwaukee. Milwaukee's one of these teams, they always seem to be in the playoffs, always seem to get bumped off. I mean,
it's true.
You know, Yelich, I think, you know, might be out for the season now. And, you know, so we'll see with Milwaukee, but they're not one of the favorites. But who knows? Maybe they'll rise up and be what Arizona was last year, you know, and somehow get to a World Series against all expectations. They're relaxed to get in the playoffs now, a virtual lock.
Yes, and the Dodgers, San Diego, Arizona. That's a 3-team race now, first place.
Yeah, well, Mookie Betts is back for the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman jammed his finger. He might be out for a little while, and we don't know what the Dodgers. You know, when the Dodgers signed Ohtani, they were the favorites to win the World Series. Suddenly. I'm looking forward to next year with the Dodgers. You know, they need Ohtani's arm. I know he hits all these home runs. He's a great hitter from the DH thing, but they really need him on the mound because that's where he would be a major difference maker for the Dodgers. You know, I don't know what Ohtani wants to do when he pitches, whether he wants to start or whether Ohtani would ever be happy working out of the bullpen. Because if Ohtani was a reliever, and he played in the field ever, okay? Can you imagine you shuttle his position even in the 4th or 5th inning to just get one guy out? He goes back in the field and then he pitches again later.
What is the rule on that, Jack? What is it?
I don't know. Think
you can hit as a pitcher, right? You could be a DH.
I would think he could. This is my opinion. I don't know. This is a great question, and I don't know the answer because it's never been done in baseball history. But let's say Ohtani, for argument's sake, was the first baseman. And you want him to just retire a guy in the 4th inning, then come back in the 9th inning again, you know, to relieve, to retire.
I don't think you can do that. I don't think.
Why shouldn't you be allowed to, Mac, if he's never left the field to play?
I think once you're done pitching, and this has been throughout ever, that once you pitch and you're pulled, you're done. You can't go back in. That's why they have position players pitching in the extra innings sometimes when they run out of relievers or they don't want to use a reliever. Because once you pitch that one time, you're done. What I'm asking is if Ohtani pitched and also was DH. You can do that, right?
Yeah, but that's one of the things with the rules in baseball. I mean, they change them when something comes up. And but the bottom line with Ohtani, rather than speculate these make-believe scenarios, the Dodgers really need him to take the mound because as much of a box office draw as Ohtani is, he's not going to remain as big a box office draw if he's strictly a DH. The fans aren't going to flock out to see him. He can't be a career DH as good as he might be in the position and be the face of baseball. They need him to at least pitch along with DHing and maybe play the field once in a while, and then he can be the face of baseball. Because I'll tell you right now, Mac, if you're a fan in another city, in a neutral city, and you have your choice to see Ohtani play or Aaron Judge play, more people would now pick Aaron Judge because he's on the field as well as hitting, and Ohtani just hits. And they might pick Aaron Judge just for the being at bat of Ohtani as well, even if both were just DHs for a game.
Listen, I tell you what I think. I don't think he will ever pitch for the Dodgers, ever, unless they get in the playoffs and they need a spot
I
pitcher.
think he will, because I think
I
he's
don't-
going to want to as
I
well.
don't. He might want to.
They'll
if he-
want him to.
If he injures his arm, no, that's what he stopped Babe Ruth from pitching, Jack. They want that bat. The only thing Babe Ruth has over Ohtani, and I'm tired of the comparison because there is no comparison. Ruth is a better player. Ruth played the field. Ohtani doesn't. Right?
Well, things will change next year. This year's a
We'll see.
transition for
We'll
Ohtani,
see.
and
We'll
he's
see.
swinging a great bat. For
We'll
what it's
see. So, I mean, he got 39 home runs now, and he doesn't play the field, and he doesn't pitch. He's not going to pitch. They're not going to take a chance at injuring him because then they got to take his bat out of the lineup. They don't want to do that. I don't know. It's
No,
interesting.
Mac. You're amazing, Mac. You're a piece of work. You call for NFL players to play in the exhibition game starters because you say they can't be timid. You can't get scared of getting hurt. Play them all the time.
I didn't
Yes, you're
stop
babying
that was never
DH in baseball. I mean, I don't get
that was never the major reason. So you don't listen to me. You're in your head. You're thinking your next thought. You don't listen. That's why you repeat a lot of things I say when you answer. Jack, the main reason they should be playing exhibition games is so that they can get their work in and be ready for the regular season, so they can decide who's going to play and who's not. Injuries happen all the time. Whether it's then last year, half of the first string quarterbacks, Jack, were out. The backup quarterbacks were playing, and the starting quarterbacks didn't play in the exhibition game. The second most in NFL history last year, Jack. The second string quarterbacks were starting last year. And explain that for me. And they're not playing the starting quarterbacks. Explain how that happened.
Well, if you give me a particular team, a particular case, I mean,
Joe Burrows. I mean, let's go. We'll go.
Joe Burrows has been injury prone throughout his career. I wouldn't center it on
Trevor
last
Lawrence.
season.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence played the majority of games.
He was out. He was out.
But
Right?
Trevor Lawrence,
Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson. This
Major League and NFL history.
Deshaun Watson. I mean, this is going to be a long show. If you want me to go through all the 16 quarterbacks that were hurt and that were replaced, this is going to be a 3-hour show, Jack. It's what happened. And you cannot protect. It's a violent game. You cannot protect people from getting hurt. It's what's going to happen. It either happens in preseason or it happens in the regular season, or they get hurt and they keep playing, or they're out.
Baseball, two players get hurt on a regular basis.
No, it's not the same, Jack. Ohtani's pitching arm. The thing they're worried about with Ohtani, he hurt his arm pitching. And if he can bat still, his arm's still hurt. He's still batting. But if he goes out there and throws and hurts his arm again, he may not be able to bat. That's what happened with Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth could have been, as you said.
You wait till he's healthy for him to pitch again. You have to wait till he's healthy. You're not going to rush him in.
Does he get Tommy John surgery? What happens there? How do they fix that elbow? Or do they say, okay, let's just let it heal, and then he hurts it again? I'm just saying, Jack, it happened before. History repeats itself.
Mac, if they didn't have to,
that's why they need Ruth. They wanted him in the field. They wanted his back.
Mac, if they didn't have the DH, Ohtani would be pitching and he'd have to hit.
I agree, but there is a DH and he doesn't. Anyway, let's get back to the NFL news. If I could, I'm in Major League Baseball news anyway. The Chicago White Sox eliminated from wild card contention.
Well, they actually won a couple of games after they had, managerial change.
That's funny. Oh, my God. Anyway, 38 and a half games behind the wild card spot, so there's no way that they could catch
Yeah, they're bad. The ironic part, a couple of years ago, they were like a 500 team.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago, they won like 92 games or something.
They had a good team.
They've really fallen. And
oh, man. And I know the Chicago fans and they're sports fans. They got to be ticked.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think in Chicago, they're more upset about the Cubs. They expected a little more out of the Cubs. Not much was expected out of the White Sox. People in Chicago didn't think they'd be this bad.
Right.
I mean, they've been awful, historically awful. But the Cubs, I think, are more Chicago's team. They've been more of a disappointment.
I agree. I agree with that. But Chicago fans, they are very loyal to their teams and they love their sports. Let's make sure I'm getting this. Hunter Green out for the Cincinnati Reds, who have very slight playoff hopes right now. He was 9-4, 2.83 ERA, 162 strikeouts, one of the better pitchers in the league. He was on a 3-0 winning streak since coming back after the All-Star break. That's going to hurt Cincinnati, Jack. And the Reds are a young, exciting team. I think a year or two from now, I think they're going to be near the top in that division if they can keep their young players together over there. Mets Brandon Nimmo undergoing MRI on his shoulder. Nimmo seems to be one of those players that gets hurt often too, Jack, out there in center.
Yeah, we talk about contracts. No one ever talks about the Mets with the Nimmo contract.
Yeah.
They signed him a couple of years ago, 8 years, $20.2 million per year.
Yeah.
That's big, big money. Now, the Colorado Rockies reportedly were going to give Nimmo the same money. And the Mets badly wanted to hold on to him because he was a useful outfielder to have. And they figured he could start with him over all these years. And he was a catalyst, a good player. But when you think I believe he has 6 years left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6. But there's over $100 million left on that contract. Could you imagine the Mets didn't make that signing? They say, and they have the money to go forward to add on to an offer for Juan Soto. You can add on like an extra $8 million a year to whatever you were going to do for a long-term deal, for example, for Soto. I mean, think of it.
Yeah.
What that extra money would mean. So sometimes I wonder, a team's better off signing 2 or 3 free agents as opposed to one superstar free agent, and if you have a chance to get a superstar like a Juan Soto, do you save all your money and sign no free agents and then go for the one massive, superstar?
Yeah, it's a gamble. I mean, maybe you get him, maybe you don't. I mean, that's a gamble you got to take, I guess, if you really want him that bad. NBA news real quick. The 76ers signed the French standout, Guerschon Yabusele, to a 1-year contract, $2.1 million. He's the one that dunked on LeBron James. He had 20 points in that gold medal game. He had 14 points per the Olympic Games. He spent two seasons with Boston after being drafted 16 overall. So I guess he was a pretty good a person in the draft, pretty high, 16th overall. Went overseas in 2019. It seems that the Philadelphia 76ers, are doing everything they can to fill that bench.
It's a bench player, Mac. Let's not get carried away with what he did like during the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's been in the NBA before.
Yeah.
And it didn't make an impact. I mean, but it's good to have useful bench players. You don't know how, as far as depth goes. So
right, and that was
really France. They got a silver medal during the Olympics, but in the earlier rounds, they could have gotten eliminated. They win close games. So
yeah. Hey, listen,
but when all said and done, it's a useful signing.
Right, exactly. Exactly. That's one of the problems 76ers have had, not a bench, and they're building that Drummond. Now they get this guy. I mean, that's
Will you
smart.
stop mentioning Andre Drummond every show, Mac?
I'm going to mention him. I like the name.
He can only grab rebounds, which is important. He's a stationary player. He's not going to have much of an impact. He'll spell Joel Embiid a couple of minutes.
That's what he needs.
Listen,
Jack. Joel Embiid gets hurt every year. They need a backup center. They got a backup center. Now, whether he scores 100 points a game or not, I don't care. He's got there to protect the rim. They need somebody when Joel Embiid gets hurt again next year. I think that was a great pickup. You might not think so, but I do. I think it's a great pickup.
Next season, Andre Drummond will be in the NBA. Don't count on him being with the 76ers next year.
That's possible.
But listen, with that said, Andre Drummond at his best is a heck of a rebounder, proven great rebounder, But there's no substitute for Joel Embiid.
Well, there is when he's injured. That's for sure.
Wow.
Anyway, real quick WNBA news. Caitlin Clark scores 29, becomes the all-time assist leader as a rookie, and the season's not over yet. So good for her. She really came into her own this year. And again, we'll see what happens.
I'm not a fan of assists, Mac, in the NBA. I'm just not. Because in reality, all you have to do is pass the ball to someone and then make the shot.
There is times when a good assist guy really helps. I mean, you would say John Stockton really set up Karl Malone for a lot of his points. You would say Magic Johnson set up Kareem and Worthy for a lot of their points. There is times, Jack, when if you have a great assist guy, and I'm not just talking about passing for a 3-point shot. And if you watch Caitlin Clark at all, and I've seen some highlights, she hits people cutting to the basket. That to me is a great assist. Like you say, just passing the ball to the guy that's going to make a 3-point shot, they give you an assist. That doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, if you create something, even
Right.
with rebounds, there's going to be a new stat in the future. Who created the opportunity to get a rebound as opposed to the ball going off the rim and just happening to go to a player
Right.
who's standing there in a position as opposed to fighting for the ball or creating position.
That would be a heck of a stat. I mean, people love stats, and I think that would be a unbelievable stat. I wanted to get the MLB players increased in free agency value. We'll keep it to Wednesday because we're getting near the top. That's something that I don't think in 2 days will change. So anyway, there's some big free agents coming out after this year. Of course, we talked about Juan Soto a lot, but there's quite a few good ones that are coming out that their value has increased because of their play this year. So we'll save that for Wednesday, Jack. We do have a couple to stay in sports history. 1965, Hank Aaron loses a home run when he hits the ball out of the batter's box. So I guess he stepped out of the batter's box to hit a home run. I haven't really heard of that since the Little Leagues. Let's put it that way. I mean, I've seen that happen in the Little Leagues, but never in a major league. But
I didn't know he stepped out of the batters. How was he able to hit a home run? By walking towards the ball, stepping out of the batter's box. I don't get it.
If you recall, when you got in the batter's box and you put a foot out of the batter's box, you're considered out of the batter's box, and you're not supposed to swing at the ball.
He was a smart hitter. Wouldn't he have noticed this foot was out of the batter's box?
Oh, no.
Hammering Hank Aaron of all people.
Maybe the batters were moving the chalk around or something. He didn't know. I don't know. But that's 1977 Dodgers. Don Sutton throws NL record-tying 5th one-hitter. We don't talk about Don Sutton a lot. He was a very good pitcher.
He was a compiler. Sutton he was a compiler.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a great pitcher per se. 324 wins. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
He compiled wins. He had longevity. He was obviously a heck of a pitcher, but I wouldn't put him in the category of, let's say, a Bob Gibson,
No.
close to that.
Yeah.
But he compiled numbers, and he was a heck of a pitcher, obviously.
Yes.
Don Sutton.
Let's see. And we also have George Brett back in 1980, reached a 400 batting average. Nobody's done it since Ted Williams. But Brett, I guess you could put George
390 on the year. He totaled hitting 390.
You could put him up there with Rod Carew and Kirby Puckett as one of the better hitters in the game, I would think.
Oh, he's a better hitter than Kirby Puckett. Come on. George Brett was a better hitter than Kirby Puckett.
Kirby was a good hitter.
Rod Carew, that's another matter. But Rod Carew didn't hit for power. He sprayed the ball all over the field. So if you ask me who was a better hitter, Rod Carew or George Brett, it's very, very, very close. I'd maybe give a tiny lean to Rod Carew. But George Brett, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, they were all in the same category, basically.
All right. I'd like Pickett. I like the name Pickett. George
Puckett, Kirby Puckett. If you look up his numbers, I'm sure you won't find they were they weren't as good as
But he was also a very good singer, Jack.
He was a heck of a center fielder.
Yes.
Kirby Puckett. I know you're trying to be funny with your joke.
I'm
You
trying to be
know,
funny. I'm trying.
with your
people-
songs. Yeah,
People,
yeah.
people with views. The viewers know what I'm talking about. They're laughing right
The
now.
Union Gap. Kirby
Yes,
Puckett,
all
Union
right.
Gap. I know,
Yes,
I
yes.
know, Mac, but I don't mention it. We're talking sports. It's going to be cute with a joke to cover up for your
You're
mistake,
just,
for your lack of sports knowledge as
you're,
far
you're
as
just,
that
you're
type of
just
hit he was.
upset
You're using
because you're just
humor to
upset.
cover up for
You're
lack
upset.
of knowledge. Yeah, man.
You're upset because I'm a double threat, Jack. I'm a double threat, a music and sports. That's what it is.
Well, you stumped me on the trivia NFL question, so this is my way that I get back at you.
All right, that sounds good. Folks, thanks for joining us. Coffee and Sports is up next. We'll see you live